I'm actually looking at my son who's playing NBA 2K in front of me, and he has Caron Butler on his team, and was very excited to hear that I was talking to you. He's looking at a 97 card and showing me your attributes. How often do you hear that these days about kids knowing about your game and what you did well based on video games?
It's crazy because, I've been one to, obviously in the midst of the pandemic, no one's going nowhere. But, prior
Yeah.
to this, I've traveled to over 30 countries, for the association, being the ambassador for the brand and, going all over the world. And, people never seen me, a lot of people from an international standpoint haven't seen me play live. All they have is, video games and, upper deck cards and stuff like that. And they get the data of your production and what you was capable of doing. And that's how they become fans. And, for the first time, going from a local to international stage, that's how a lot of people was introduced to your game or to the game as a whole. And
Right.
it's just rewarding to have that connection or have those moments where people just, tell you, how much they appreciate you from, one, just, playing with you on a video game or, watching the data or looking at the data and just saying, you know what, you was a hell of a player or you was solid or you was kind of good or, you stink. I don't know. Like, it's crazy just to have that conversation and that connection with so many fans around the world.
So who is better, Caron Butler, the player, or the video game character?
Oh, the video game guy, I mean, he was unstoppable. I mean, the NBA Live, man, '07, I mean, bro, I think I was like in the 90s of a rating standpoint. I was like, whoa. Like,
Nice.
I was like, people thought my cousin did the ratings or something. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But it's exciting to be a part of that and, just, have your likeness, played on video games. Something that we grew up doing. I got the Polycade in my house now, and we practicing social distancing and staying away from everybody and being at home. And I get to play these video games. And my introduction to, Glass Joe and Mike Tyson and all that, playing the video game. And now, I'm just thinking, fast forward, some kid's introduction to me is the same way of playing a video game.
It's so funny, Caron, because if you talk to football players, they will tell you their 40 speed and how many times they can lift the bench, and they can also tell you their Madden rating. Like, it is a real important thing what your Madden rating is going to be. Does every basketball guy know what his video game rating is too?
Yeah, you know what? I've seen a lot of back and forth. What was it, Ronnie 2K? Like with the video games and seeing some of the ratings and guys like, come on, man, I'm way better than the 80 or I'm better than a 75 or how LeBron's still like 98 or something, like all those things. But listen, guys pay attention to that stuff because before, we was in the midst of this pandemic, for pastime, everyone didn't go out and, be extremely social and things like that. Some of the players in our league, they're practicing social distancing. So they stay in the room, they play video games online and do all those things. And, they pay attention to their characters and, like, what's the rating of their characters and some of their teammates. And, that's bragging rights. If you're in the high 90s, that's something that becomes trending extremely fast, and that's something that's being talked about amongst the NBA elite.
Well, let me tell you right now, you're chewing up and spitting out Andre Iguodala on the game that I'm watching in front of me as my son plays. Listen, I had an appreciation for your story and where you've come from for years now. And maybe I'm drawing conclusions from social media that I shouldn't be, but it seems like during this global pandemic, and I think a lot of us are reflecting on where we've come from and where we are. Is it fair that you've kind of done a little reflecting, that you kind of taken stock in how far you've come and how much you're now able to help other people?
Yeah, you know what? I think that, I always think about how far I've come and, some of the odds and what I've been through. And I just try to find ways to, use my platform. The NBA does this NBA Together virtual roundtable, and where we talk to, people from all walks of life. And I had the privilege of having Brian Stevenson on today, along with the head coach of Coach Lloyd Pierce, the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. We had him on as well. and a couple other players, and Kyle Korver was on the first episode along with Swin Cass. And, it's interesting to see the observation and perspectives from different folks from different walks of life, and then also just like how we have a hub of, information and how we're informing and using our platforms. And I always thought like that. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to inspire in different ways. And, it's just like rewarding because I've been doing this before the pandemic hit. And I think that that's important that, we kind of, slow down. Everything was fast. People was moving so fast, chasing their dreams, whatever, and kind of got out of the importance of why we're really here, and that's to enhance everybody and enhance your neighbor and, talk about real issues and, try to move the needle on real issues. And now I think that, without live entertainment, without entertainment as a whole, it's just been different. You're seeing the world as and for what it is. And the things that's really important is really starting to surface.
Caron Butler joins us on Tim and Sid. You may know him from NBA TV's Game Time and host of the Tough Juice podcast. You mentioned these different perspectives, Caron, that you may not have thought of. And I think, especially in times like these, when you have nothing but time to think and reflect and watch and see what's going on around you, our minds take us in different ways. What was a perspective that some of the different people you've spoken with in the basketball world have shared with you that made you think a little, that made you take a step back and consider what they're talking about and resonated with you a little bit?
Well, like today we talked about COVID and the correctional facilities. And I thought that Brad Stevenson, who's, he's a New York Times bestseller. And for those not familiar with the name, Brad Stevenson's done a great deal of work in the criminal justice system. He was the author of Just Mercy, the book that was turned to a mega movie, a blockbuster movie, starring Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx this past year. And some of the things that he was talking about is just that when you talk about criminal justice reform and mass incarceration and what's happening, a lot of people initially will say, well, jail, the conversation of incarceration, like that don't apply to me. But he gave me a different observation on how it applies to everyone, systematic issues and how we're all affected or impacted one way or other. Like for me, I actually went through that. I went through that experience and, the traumas and things that I was going through wasn't addressed. So I had to understand and learn that in real time in order for me to be a better version of me. Now, other people may have family members and loved ones that go through it. Other people may experience the wrath of someone that did not get their trauma addressed while they was incarcerated, and then all of a sudden they come out, and now, someone that went in bad came out worse, and now it's havoc on the world, and now you may be a victim of the havoc. So it's just like so many things, and, you may have a connection to it because your taxes went up, or how the institutions work because they're doing a testing on people as early as the age of 3rd and 4th grade to build more correctional facilities in different regions. So just that observation and looking at the optics of that, it educated me, so much more. And what I like to do is be as informed as possible when I'm using my platform, because we can easily just post anything on our sites, Twitter or Facebook, whatever. But, I like to be as informed as possible. So I'm informing the people of my following as much as possible.
Here.
It feels like that's an anomaly here in 2020. Yeah, like people, it's the conversations are so important, and I love that you said you like to inform yourselves because that's so important. There's so much information out there that you can get it if you want it, but too many people are too busy yelling and screaming that they don't hear the conversation.
Yeah, and I think we have to be open to, all things, and I think we have to be willing to, reserve to, the conversation time. Like, it's my time to talk. You should listen. And I can't hear anything unless I let you talk and I listen. And we can share this platform. Now it's my turn to talk and you should listen. And, just like we're doing in this interview, you're giving me a time to tell my truth, and I'm giving you an opportunity to ask your questions or elaborate even more on what your truth is. And I think that, it's now everything's been taken away from us. Whatever higher power you believe in, everything's been taken away. And now we're forced to just, go back to our truths, have conversation. No one can hide from no one at this point. If you got broadband, you're able to connect. And that's why interviews and conversations are, so important right now. And I hope that people are maximizing this time to have that dialogue to, move the needles on real issues. And, you've seen the help process with so many folks, in the midst of this COVID outbreak, where they're helping different organizations and they're helping the neighbors. And, that's just, remarkable to watch. And, I'm so glad that, like, so many communities and people from different walks of life are really coming together.
Yeah, I go back to the Wooden quote, and it's just, to me, it's just surround yourself, whatever you do in life, surround yourself with smart people who will argue with you. And right now we're doing the arguing, but we're not doing the listening. It's just, I think it's a real important step in all of this.
It's huge. It's huge. And look, I do my fair share of both. I do my fair share of arguing, trying to get my point across, and I also do a ton of listening because I don't want to miss out on anything, especially with super informed and insightful individuals. Someone that, they're doing a movie on this brother life and his impact on the world and how he's changing the narrative of, black and brown people universally. Like today, it was just like an educational lesson. I had so many questions. Nice. And, we was hard hit on time. We get capped out at 45 minutes. And I was just like, man, it's like so many more things I want to ask. And, I got his email, and I was like, I'm going to email you all day because I got more questions. But I think that's what it's about, man, just trying to be as informed as possible, so you're using your platform wisely.
Caron Butler joins us on Tim and Sid. Caron, a decade and a half in the game. And, I remember Derek Jeter and David Ortiz talking about the beginning of their careers. They'd show up to the stadium, half an hour before batting practice with a bag of McDonald's. They dress, they go out in the field. At the end of their careers, they'd need 2 hours just to get ready before they'd go stretch. And I bring that up because if there is going to be basketball, and you talked about having an educated opinion, you live that whole thing, from being a young buck to being a vet. When there hasn't been basketball, if they come back, a month or two from now, when guys have been down for a while, how, I don't know, worrisome, but how significant is the injury factor in your mind going into any kind of playoffs for dudes whose bodies have been shut down for so long and they're not machines that just get started right back up? What's it going to take to keep these guys healthy on the floor if we're going to have a basketball season of some sort?
Well, I think that, you got to look at something of the past or what can you compare it to? And look, injuries are part of the game, and whenever you're down for quite a period of time, whether it's, 90 days, I think it's 50-some days and count now since the cancellation of the season or it been put on pause. And you just wonder, just like when preseason starts up, after a long summer of just sitting, and it's quite different because you haven't had access to gyms and certain things. So, you have home gyms and things like that, but it's only so much you can do if you don't have the proper equipment. So you fast forward to now, you dive back into just like ramping it up and going full throttle. Injuries will happen just like in the regular preseasons. Those injuries happen, and this comes when you have the luxury of training all season long. And I compare it to the 2010-11 season where, we come off the lockout. We start in the first week of December, and, the lockout was lifted. And, I remember because I signed on as a free agent the first week, and then all of a sudden I'm playing on Christmas Day. So first week of December, we literally had 15, 17 days to get into, the best shape and get ready for a basketball game on national television. So it happens rather quickly. And what I would say to the athletes out there, I do think it's going to be a season. I don't know when that timetable is going to be, but look for it, with certain cities and regions opening up strategically now. I know the Lakers are asking the mayor and the governor to, possibly get into the facility a week earlier rather than May 15th or somewhere around that deadline. So it's starting to happen, and as you got to pay attention to the signs. And if you see that starting to happen, across the board with all these organizations, it's going to be something happening in the near future as far as a basketball standpoint. So I think, 6 to 8 weeks out, you should expect live action, live entertainment basketball being played on some platform.